we're streaming. Okay, so as soon as this shows a display, then we're definitely live. So bam, you're live. Like I said, there's a delay, right? And we'll bring it up on the screen. I can just type it in the search. Okay.
What a deal.
That's you right now, buddy.
Yeah, I wish it was real time so I'd know what I was doing.
Well, I mean, you do know what you're doing because you're doing it right now. Just, I mean, the only reason.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm 30 seconds ahead of probably what I'm seeing, so I want to tell you a little bit about me. I was in the Marine Corps. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I got a degree in electronics. Went to work for Lockheed Martin. Due to Agent Orange and a grenade in my foxhole in '69, I had to retire from Lockheed Martin early. And so starting, in about 95, that's when I retired, came home, started working down at the VBA, helping people get their disabilities because I had some problems getting in, and I realized what was going on. I got myself educated, got better, wrote a book, started helping people, and I've helped over 1,000 people. And from that 1,000 people that had combat PTSD, I got a congressional letter from the White House and showing their appreciation for my work. I do everything myself. It takes 6 hours to work with anybody. I can do it over the phone. I usually do it in person, with working with them for 2 hours, and then waiting a week, come back for another 2 hours, and then come back another week. First week is what caused your PTSD. The second week is how it affected your life all the way up until present, and the third is to cover the symptoms. It's all based on 70% disability. Not that I think everybody's got 70, but it allowed me to ask the same questions and doing it 1,000 times over 6 times 1,000 hours, 6,000 hours, well over that. I got pretty good at it. So anyway, I'm pretty successful. I don't charge anything, and I pay for my own editing and stuff like that. I just want to give back. You people that put me through college, got me where I was, got me through everything. You people paid taxes. GI Bill was great. Second, when I got out, I started messing around with what's going on because there's so many anomalies in the world, things that we can't explain. I wanted to try to get a handle on them. There was a lot of things I did while I was with Lockheed Martin. I earned the rank of E8, which was the equivalent of E8 in Space Command, not air. So Space Command deals with satellites and so on, and I worked 10 years in California and 10 years about 8 years in the Colorado Springs area. In the Colorado Springs area, I became an instructor, and I had two teaching certificates. One of them was with Lockheed Martin, and the other one was with Space Command. So I'm one of 2 civilians that have ever gone to a course to be an Air Force instructor, because they had to have that the only way I could teach them, and I was the only one that with the knowledge on satellite operations and the way the satellite subsystems worked, the way the internet worked, the way communications to the satellite down to us, how the payloads worked, all of those things. I even taught a little bit of GPS, things like that. So I know a lot of things. And again, I know how to be an instructor. As a result, I have run across something since 1995 to present that I want to call dark liquid. It's a combination of dark energy and dark mass that we understand as now. And the reason why it exists is because there's not enough gravity to keep the moon going around the Earth, us going around the sun going around Earth, placing our galaxies, the galaxies holding themselves together. Nothing makes sense. So they said there had to be more mass. The mass is about 5 times more than all the mass that we can see through telescopes. There are billions of galaxies each with billions of suns, each with billions of planets, and so on and so forth. And so that only makes up a small fraction of the size of the dark mass that we're talking about, which is 5 times as great. So where is it? Why can't we see it? And it's because it's very, very small. It's smaller than an atom. I have, since 1995, studied everything that I can study, and I'm going to tell you part of the conclusion, because I'm becoming an old man and I'm going to kick the bucket here pretty soon, and I sure don't want this information lost. I've been collecting it in my notes, which is turning into a book. I have literally hundreds and hundreds of pages of data, schematics, drawings, so on and so forth. So let me get to the conclusion. It is a fact that if you take 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen and separate them using electrolysis, and then you add a flame, it'll get an explosion. The explosion is very, very hot. It can approach superheated steam, which gives you an expansion rate of 1701. So if you had 1 drop of water, then you would have 1700, equivalent of 1700 drops of water in volume. And that's a lot, because if you look at hydrogen and you take it to a gas form, it expands about 850 times. If you take oxygen and do the same thing, you get about 850 to 1, something like that. And when you get through and you combine them, you're still going to get 850. So where did the 1700 come from? This is what I think, and this is what I'm going to prove with the documentation through experimentation, also informational facts information. Okay, the first part is hydrogen, when it isn't in this dark liquid, it is like a collector of the dark liquid. It is like something growing on the hydrogen, only hydrogen. Hydrogen now has this dark liquid on it, and the dark liquid is somewhere in the state between a solid and a gas, and so that's where I'm getting the liquid state, and it's probably more like a slush state than it is liquid state, and I'll explain it a little bit later. But for now, just assume that hydrogen atoms collect this like moss or something around it, and guess what? The orbit, or the atmospheric level, the density of the shell that has collected on the proton is now where the electrons, that's the lowest level it can go. Meaning that when we identify orbits where you have protons and electrons orbiting them at a certain altitude, that altitude is this layer. Now, the fuzzballs are also being collected on electrons. And so electrons have little fuzzballs, and you have a fuzzball and a fuzzball and a fuzzball, and the electrons can't touch because the fuzzball is pushing away, which is nothing more than something that grew out of the nourishment of the dark liquid. So now we have electrons in orbit, just like we have in our definition of what is a proton and how are electrons orbiting and so on. And yeah, they're orbiting kinda, and they're orbiting in this higher density atmospheric level, and we'll allow it to be a liquid for now. Going back, when we start heating water up, with knowing that the hydrogen atom has this around it. As the proton heats up, so does the hydrogen atom. The rest of the liquid is flowing by us at extreme speed. And just to give you an analogy of something factual, there's a thing called neutrinos. Neutrinos were discovered in 1930. They were discovered when we got into fusion reaction and the water started turning green, and the water naturally had 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. And the reason why it was turning green is it is believed that when an electron changes orbit from high to a low, that is when it puts out light, and that was what was causing the glow. Now, that particular glow on the sun, if what they believe is true, which is hydrogen fusing together, becoming helium, and then going all the way out through all the stages, if that's true, then the neutrinos that goes through your thumbnail, even if the Earth was blocking you from the sun, would still be billions of neutrinos going through your fingernail every second. And they are so small compared to a proton that they don't touch anything. It's even greater than the distance between here and the Earth with a little rock, and you're trying to hit one of us. The chances are you're not going to hit if you throw it from a long ways away. And so it's kind of like that analogy is the way it's explained. But so that's what a neutrino is. A neutrino is extremely large with respect to the size of the particles in this liquid that I call the dark liquid. And yes, if a dark liquid exists, then it had to be created from something else. And so, yeah, so you might want to look at it as dimensional in size, not dimensional, there's up, down, left, right, forward, back, and then we have time. And just let me say something about time. Time is based on size. The bigger you are, the lower the hum. The smaller you are, the greater the hum. When you get to the atom world, that's about as high the frequency that we can go. When we get to the next level, which is the dark liquid, if you get that to hum, the frequency would be so high that we would not have instruments to be able to hear it. But I do want you to know that there are things called harmonics, which is anytime we have 2 frequencies that mix, we get one plus the other. Second harmonic, when they mix, you get one plus the other, and so on and so forth to infinity. You can just add up these groups. And the only reason why I'm saying that is, although we can't hear those frequencies with our equipment, we can pick up the harmonics, and if we're smart enough, we can determine a lot more about this dark liquid later on. So we have tools that we're going to go for this dark liquid. But going back to why I believe we've been using dark liquid all along, everything that we know and use, it's dependent on it. Only we've identified it as something else. And so in the case of water, like on your car, you pull off the radiator cap, and 1 atmosphere pressure, which is about 14.5 or so psi, pressure pushing in on the body. That pressure, 1 atmosphere, as the temperature rises to 212 degrees or 100 degrees C, it'll start getting to a boil or steam state. And then if you put the cap on it, the atmospheric pressure will build up. That means the pressure of it going to a gas state increases. So now we have a higher atmosphere. And so when you have 20-pound radiator cap or something like that, well, all you've done is change the atmosphere so that you would hold off of the steam point. But nevertheless, if we take water and we take it up to steam, as the water and the hydrogen expands, it should have only gone about 850 times to reach its size. But in reality, it's going 1,700 because each one of those particles on there are also expanding. They are expanding because they were stuck to the hydrogen and they're picking up the heat. The rest of the liquid is going by. taking some of the heat with it maybe and taking away. So the concept of no such thing as 100% efficiency, it's only because the dark liquid going through, always removing heat, which is a form of energy. So it's transferring energy from one place to the other. So heat, really, what we define heat is nothing more than a frequency. So the frequency or the energy, the amplitude of whatever is vibrating due to what we see as heat is actually being absorbed by something else and taking away in form of vibration and then being passed on to something else. So in a liquid environment, everything makes absolute sense. Nevertheless, the dark liquid has now reached a superheated steam state. We know that the expansion rate was 1700 to 1. It should have been 800 to 1 for some reason it had done the job for us. Now, as we start cooling it off, it comes back down to its normal state. That is what I think. We're talking about the energy of a steam engine pulling hundreds of cars down the track. That's a lot of power, okay? And I'm going to make that power not only available to you, I'm going to show you how you can use it. I'm going to show you how I can make a combination air motor and a hydrogen oxygen combustible engine that'll go along with the air. And I've got most of that built. I've got some projects where I can come up and build a heater system in the house. I can use the hydrogen to pump up oxygen and use oxygen under pressure to use as to drive a motor, to turn a generator, or move a car, or whatever. Also going to get a little bit of chemical activities related to batteries, supercapacitors, which are capacitors are farad. They're a storage device, electronics. They're usually in microfarads. I've got some up to 3,600 farads, which is trillion times greater than what you see in those cans and TVs and things like that. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of activity there. And again, it's all about what is this dark liquid, what can we use for it, and if you are taking the trip from here to California, or that be your target, my trip to California, the analogy is me understanding gravity and controlling gravity. It is the heart of everything. I have knowledge, I have breadth and depth, I have everything that I need, and I know how to teach. Teaching is about telling somebody what you're going to teach them, and then tell them what you told them. And I hope I can do that. I hope this presentation part has introduced myself as somebody that you might be able to depend on as not being a quack, because I've had interfaces with some of the most brilliant people in the world that I had to work with on satellites. I know a lot of things, and what I don't know I have access to through my friends. But since we're going to dip into so many different fields, from everything from religion to chemistry to physics to, and by the way, all of these things you don't have to know, even if you did not have an education, even if you're a street smart bully, if you're not addicted, if you don't tell your friends that you're trying to learn something, because usually I found out that friends have a tendency of trying to talk you out of learning something new and going down a new path. I don't understand really why that's happening. I've seen it hundreds of times. But anyway, keep that in mind. If you start talking to a bunch of people, you start in together, you might be all right. But if you say, hey, I got this guy, he's telling me this, I'll try to shoot holes in it because of this or that. So stick with me for a while. I'll try to focus on what's really important. This is the I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you part. And it'll last for several sessions before I can get in and tell you what I want to tell you. Okay? because when I get in to tell you what I want to tell you, then I want to get a lot deeper. But what I need to do is motivate you on what I want to tell you. And the motivation is me proving that hydrogen has been the source of power that we've been using in power plants, any place that we've used steam, which is everywhere. That's been because of the dark liquid. If we understand that dark liquid, now we can start using it for other things. It is so powerful that it will give you all of the energy that you would ever need from any home, anywhere, any place, any time. All you have to do is have liquid water. And when you get through the byproduct of everything that we've done, it's going to be drinkable water. Not so you can put dirty water in. I can show you how to do it. You get all the energy you want. You get the dark liquid that you want. You can use the dark liquid however you want, and the product is heat. And the other one is clean water. So I thought it would be worth telling you what I was going to tell you, and see if there's anything else I want to go for. I'm married. I have 3 kids. Actually, I've been married my 2nd time. Living very happy. I don't need anything. My income exceeds most people's. I don't owe anything on my house. Don't owe anything on my cars. I don't want anything. Again, this is a give back session to probably your mothers and fathers that are my age. Our mothers and fathers set up the GI Bill and got me where I am. The service got me where I am, even though I probably had a worse time in the service than anybody else, since I got a blown off leg, Agent Orange destroyed half my heart, and got my brains a little bit messed up. Nevertheless, I think I'm on the right track, so I said all of these things to give the people that want an excuse to saying he's crazy. Now you have ammunition for those guys that want to give this another shot. Please tune in. I'll be back round 2. Bye now.